Okay, so I'm going to my very first locals. And what I mean by that is I'm going to partake and compete in a locals. Now, I'm not sure if this is an official OTS tournament or if this is just a bunch of people coming around to play some Yu-Gi-Oh! Which either way, I feel like it'll be great for me to push the herd. So most likely, none of you know about my past with Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Since middle school. That's at least 4 to 6 years by now. And I've been playing this game ever since. And wasn't until half of it, I would say like into 2 years of me playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I got into more of the Yu-Gi tuber side. I was into more of the competitive side of Yu-Gi-Oh! But I never partook in a local setting. Mainly because I've been too afraid to go into a locals and see my record, see how I am, how I do in a local setting. It's always nerve-wracking when, especially, you can take a look at the meta, see where you're gonna find. But not granted, not everything's gonna be a meta sort of thing, especially when you're talking about locals. It could be rogue, it could be tier 1, tier 2. And I'm a bit upset, but not too upset. I really wanted to go in with my favorite deck, Mathmex. But so far in the meta, before the ban list is officially comes into effect on February 13th, right now it is, give me a minute, February 11th, 5:53 p.m. So before the ban list takes effect, Mathmex are currently been pushed out of the meta because of Bestials. So it's kind of upsetting, especially when I go in and out of Yu-Gi-Oh! The last time I was in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was when Mathmex were coming in as a good sort of control strategy with the new circular. But then I stopped playing because there was no one really for me to play with. So I stopped playing the game entirely. And then I met this person at work. His name is Daniel. I'm not sure if I'm gonna name drop him. I might take it out entirely, but he started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like 2 to 3 weeks ago, and he's already going so steadfast and learning compared to when I was barely playing the game. And he's already down to play in a tournament or competitive setting. And as someone like me who has sit in the competitive setting, seen the decks rise, seen some fall, tried to get into it myself, but not really finding the locals in order to do so. It's been nerve-wracking now trying to get into it, and I've been trying to prepare as best as I can, but I generally don't know what I'm gonna come across. So while I should say fuck it, I'm gonna go with my boys, I'm gonna choose a more safer option and test the waters. So today we be playing Branded, and I'll maybe do a deck profile. I'm not sure. I'll put it in here next if I do when I come back. But he is currently on his way right now. You can see here, well, I don't know how to do this. You can see he is on his way right now. I don't know if you can read that properly. He is on his way now. It's not gonna take too long to get here, so we're gonna see. This is gonna be both our first very locals, and especially a moment for me. I don't want to take the credit off of him. He's certainly changing very fast and learning things very fast. I just think for me, after playing for 4 to 6 years and not partaking in any locals or tournaments, or even battling anyone outside of friend groups, the step. So, see what the results. So it has been about 3 weeks since my last video that I recorded. At the very least 3 to 4 weeks since then, and I have not gone until today. And today is going to be me sort of recounting my experience playing in my very first tournament. I did join in with my friend Daniel. He was a bit hesitant at first, but I did get him to push and actually participate. I did pay for his admission, so everything was not out of his pocket, it was out of mine, and I did want him to at least experience and get some more, at least be comfortable in the scenery before he probably follows my path and then doesn't join in the experience at all. And as a recount, it went fairly, I thought I did better than what I thought I would do. I generally thought I would just lose and go 0-2, 0-3, or 0-5 or whatever. But there was only 3 rounds, so I guess 0-3. But I generally did better than I expected to. I went 1-1-1. So I did win 1 round, I lost 1 round, and then I drew with someone in 1 round. So, I guess we can recollect and think about what happened. My first round was against Drytron, and I generally did not expect going up against a Drytron player. I did not know how to really hit Drytron either. It just seemed like the deck, no matter if it was hit, can still function as long as cards were sent to the graveyard. And from my knowledge, I don't have any way of stopping that. First round I went first, and I can't really recall my hand, but I was able to end on the board of the Dust Dragon, the Blazing Cartesia Dust Dragon, which I'll probably pull it up something. But it was that, a Lobelion, and a Dragoon, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. And I had the Dragoon negate. That was the first thing I activated. He activated a Cyber Emergency. I negated it with Dragoon. I had no idea what he was playing at the time, and I didn't even know of the extra side effect for Cyber Emergency. But I decided to negate it because I at least very knew it was going to add him a Machine Monster, or Light Monster? Machine? I don't know, I have to look at it. And I was going to add him a monster, so I figured I might as well negate it just in case of stopping him if he didn't have a great hand. He still had a pretty decent hand. He then activated Triple Tactics Talents, which was a feel bad, as he was able to take over my Dragoon. And I can't remember what happened, but my Lobelion was sent, and all I had was in hand a Lobelion. All I had in hand was Mercurier, which required Lobelion to be on field in order to have a negation. So that turned off my Mercurier in hand, and all I had was a set Retribution. So even though I can activate the Retribution, I generally did not know what to hit with the Retribution. I think I just hit it on one of his Drytron monsters. I think Alpha was the one, or no, Beta. I think I hit it on the Beta of Special Summon to grab I think I was trying to grab a Ritual spell and to Special Summon another monster. I think that's what it does. So I decided that was 2 cards for 1. I figured that was the time to use it, so I did use the Retribution. And then for the Dust Dragon, if you want me to grab a specific name, I do have the deck right here in front of me. Gran Guigno, I don't know how to say it, the Dust Dragon. I did have that on field, but even with tagging it out into a Proskenion, I generally thought I couldn't do anything of his board at that point. So then he just sort of broke my board, took my cards, and then just attacked for game. So that was game 1. And game 2, I sided in Raw's Disciple, and there's a reason I run Raw's Disciple and not Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. It's because I couldn't find a gimmick puppet nightmare, but I cited in the gimmick cited in Raw's Disciple, and I also cited in Super Polys. I cited in Super Polys as I figured that if anything, I can use the Super Polys to soup up one of his Xyz or one of his links, and then just partly attack over the rest, or just use them both for a fusion monster of my own. But I couldn't really use much as I didn't have Garura. All I could really do, he didn't have any fusion, so I couldn't use Dragostapelia, but I could at the very least use one of his monsters for a fusion. So I cited in Super Poly, I cited in Raw's Disciple, and then in game 2, Raw's Disciple did come in. Pretty sure I had a hand of Aluber and Branded Fusion. I just had that hand constantly within these games. Like my game 1 was 2 deployments, 2 fusions, and an Aluber. That's a bit unlucky, but also kind of good. The 2 deployments, I think you only can activate one of them, and then same thing with the fusion. I at least know the fusion you can only activate one of them, so it was a feels bad moment to have 2. But at the very least, if Aluber did get negated, I had the fusion as follow-up. So I would activate Aluber, and all times Aluber and fusion did not get negated in my games. So Aluber went through, I grabbed Branded Lost, and then I also activated the Branded Lost to activate Branded Fusion, and then Fusion make Lubellion, and then with the Lost and Lubellion, I get an extra card. I can either be Mercurier, or it could be Spriggan's Kit, or even Blazing Cartesia, which I already had the deployment for, so I did not really need the Cartesia. So I think I grabbed the Spriggan's Kit, because last game I also had a Lost, and I grabbed the Mercurier just in case for a negation, which I didn't get to use because my Lubellion was gone. So I grabbed the Spriggan's Kit just to go further deep into a combo, and I think I ended off on Lubellion. It was Mirror Jade, Dusk Dragon, and there's one monster I'm forgetting. I think it was Lubellion, the Bestial Lubellion, Mirror Jade, and the Dusk Dragon. I thought that was a pretty decent board. I first used the Mirror Jade affected banish a monster, because I knew once I activated because I had a Albion set to grave for the effect to set a branded spell or trap down, so I would set the expulsion, and then with the expulsion I would send the Mirror Jade to then special the Raw's Disciple on his field, and then give me the Fallen of Alabaz. I think I got Blazing Cartesia, but I only have one Dust Dragon, so I think I couldn't really only go for one monster, and it was Dragostapelia, I think. At least, I'm trying to remember, this was at the very least 5 hours ago, and a lot of details, leave the memory, but that game 2, I eventually just took it because of the Raw's Disciple lock, and then attacking over his monsters on my turn, because he passed, he couldn't really special summon anything. And then game 3, I think it was a taste of what comes with the tournament scene. Game 3, we barely had 5 minutes probably left on the clock, and I was he went first, obviously, and he was going on his Drytron plays. I think he was trying to go full combo, but it was actually taking a minute. So mid combo, he deals damage on me. I can't remember what effect exactly dealt damage, but at the very least, he was gaining life points through one of the Cyber Angel monsters. I can't remember which one. If I can, I'll find it. But oh no, I remember. I Nibiru'd him because he summoned Beatrice, and he was going on his Drytron combos. He summoned Beatrice, and I didn't know when exactly the point was, the breaking point for Nibiru, because I didn't want to hold up the Nibiru and then just let him summon a monster that basically was his out to Nibiru. So I shotgunned the Nibiru, and then he was still doing his Drytron combos. And after that point, he was gaining life points. He was gaining, I think it was 1,250 life points because of that Cyber Angel monster. And we were going into a minute of time, and he still wasn't done with this combo. So he was at the higher life points. Didn't have much to really stop it. My Nibiru was just my only way to stop his combos. And I just said, hey man, you got it. You got the most life points either way. Literally a minute left on the clock. He wasn't seeming like he was stopping. He was still going on his Drytron combos. And even if I took my turn, I felt like I couldn't even do much to take care of his life points. So I just conceded, and that was my loss for round 1. It was a bit of a start, but I was surprised I was able to get back on round 2. So I was not that down, but still not that great of a start, especially when game 1 had 2 deployments and 2 fusions and 1 Aliber. Game 2 though, I feel like it's another sort of showing of the competitive or tournament scene that I could be seeing in the foreseeable future. I played against Kashtira, and that was my first time playing against Kashtira. It was definitely something. Game 1, I think he won that one, but I'm having very foggy memories of that one because I specifically remember having a full board of fusion monsters and then just attacking for a bunch of damage to him. So I don't remember who won. I'm thinking he won because we went to the game 2, and game 2 was just the longest game you can ever imagine. I end on the board of just Lobelion and Dragoon and the Dust Dragon. I've been having a lot of hands where I have just like Fusion Deployment, Blazing Cartesia maybe, if it wasn't Fusion Deployment. Aliber and Branded Fusion were quite common in the hands I was drawing, and I think that's amazing. First of all, that's good. That's really good. If Aliber was negated, which I did not come across any Ash Blossoms, but if he was negated, I did have the Branded Fusion for follow-up. So Aliber was just a bait, which no one really had. I don't know if they weren't playing any Ash Blossoms or just they didn't draw into them, but I never got ashed. Like I said, I did the same thing. Aliber, get lost, activated, fusion, get my stuff, extend with the lost, and I ended on Dragoon. And Dragoon, honestly, I feel like has become one of the MVPs of this deck because Dragoon, playing against the Kashtira player, they would go off on their combos, and I didn't know what to stop with a Kashtira deck. All I knew to myself is I needed to stop him before he got any rank 7 Xyz monsters. So partly before he would special summon a second monster to go into an Xyz play, I would negate its effects and blow up the card, because Dragoon destroys the card when it's negated and he gains the permanent 1,000 attack. And that was basically my game plan, to stop him before he can get into any rank 7 Xyz. And it was proven to be quite successful, even though sometimes I did slip. And like one turn he activated Water Enchantress effect, and then I was still iffy about negating it, but he still went through. He still went to go search for his Rite of Emissary. I was like, okay, dude, whatever. So then I decided to negate the Rite of Emissary, and then, you know, that was the end of it. He wasn't going to go through because I was afraid of him bouncing my Dragoon and also just having an extra negation on board. So I had to, in my mind, negate it because I know what the Adventure package can do. And then he just sort of went through with his combos and then sort of summoned like 2 Xyz monsters. But then on the next turn, I made Dracostapelia. I blew up one of his monsters with Dragoon, made Dracostapelia, put a predator counter on the other one, so it basically made it useless. And then just sort of went into this very long grind game until Dragoon, evidently what happened was a lot of turns were just me drawing one card. It was probably like Fallen Valbas, so I couldn't even fuse because I needed the discard for Fallen. I was like, okay, just pass. And then he would go try to do his Kashtira things, and I would just negate it with Dragoon. He would stop there, pass turn, and then it would go to me. I would attack, draw one card. One time I even drew Dark Magician, which was like, okay, this is really not gonna help me. So just pass turn, attack with Dragoon, pass. And then Dragoon became a 7,000 attack monster. So just one swing could easily put me in the winning position. And he just decided to scoop up that game because Dragoon was just too big for him to really surpass. And he couldn't really find a way out of it. So that was game 2. And before we could even start game 3, there was 10 seconds left on the clock. And we just had to take the draw. By the time we drew our 5 hands, time was called. I definitely wonder if it was me taking up a lot of time, because even in my first round, we went into time, but sometimes I overthink, so, and maybe not, because the Kashtira player activated a lot of effects along with the Drytron player, and I'm not trying to throw shade or anything. I'm just saying, like, their turns seemed a lot longer than mine's, so I'm not sure, because the Kashtira player went full on board, 3 Xyz monsters on field, and even at one point he locked out all of my spell and trap zones, which at first was bad because I think he went first. At first it was very bad because I had Oliver even branded fusion in my hand. But by the grace of the Yu-Gi-Oh gods or whatever, I also had Fallen of Albaz in hand, so I just normaled Fallen and then just used one of his Xyz monsters to then go into my Lubellion and then just summon Mirror Jade, banish the other one, and then just swung over the other one, or just, I still had Dragoon. This was like the Dragoon game, and a lot happened in that game. So it was like no problem for me to just go over that sort of zone locking. After that, there wasn't really much zone locking from the Kashtira player. I definitely think if the round went on longer, I probably could have taken it, but like I said, the round 2 was just so much time that it just forced us into a draw position. I did not want to concede and scoop because I had the Dragoon negate. He was getting pretty big, so I feel like I was in the more commanding position, because every time the Kashtira player would go, he was already sort of rebuilding the board, trying to get the Xyz monsters out while I was just destroying it. So I definitely felt in the higher position. I did not want to concede game, and he definitely felt like he wanted to keep going with the rounds, because I kind of blame him, kind of don't, because in game 2, each time he was rebuilding his board consistently, but I was just denying it for him. So I don't know if I should have conceded or if he should have conceded, because I was having not letting him have his Kashtira, but I couldn't really attack through to him. I only really had Dragoon for most of the game. Yeah, I had Mirror Jade, but that was like way later in the game. But he did scoop, just not earlier. I'm not sure about that. And then game 3 was against Sprite, and I was kind of excited, kind of not, because again, it's a deck that I don't know what to hit or what really to do to stop its plays. So game 1 or round 1 was definitely something. He summoned this beaver monster to summon another one out in the field, and then he went into I don't think he went into Titaniclad actually, but he at least activated. No, wait, I think he went to Titaniclad because I went first actually that game. That game I actually went first. I had my board of Dragoon, the Dust Dragon. I forget its name. I can't even pronounce his name, so I don't know what I'm trying to remember. I think it was Dragoon, Lubellion, and the Dust Dragon. And I had in hand one discard. I think it was Book of Eclipse. I was thinking of setting it face down for him, but I also thought the other cards were more important. I had an Ash Blossom and a Mercurier. So just the Ash and Mercurier alone, I feel like were very good cards to have in hand. So I decided to leave the Book of Eclipse in hand just to discard it with Dragoon. So I had the Drew negate, I had the Ash Blossom, Mercurier negates, and then also I had the tag out for Proskenion. So I felt like I should held up the Book of Eclipse, and I did. And then I Dragoon negated. I forget which card I Dragoon negated. But he summons the most thing I remember is he summons Beaver, summons another Beaver or related monster type out, and then he activates Pot of Prosperity. I negated a couple of his cards. I can't remember what they were, but then he activates Pot of Prosperity as his last ditch effort. And I know that because he did it for 3 and he flipped up 2 Nibiru's and another Beaver. And he scooped after that. He said the game was mine. And yeah, I took round 1. And round 2, he also let me go first, I think, because I ended ironically in the same board as always, because my hands just seem to have the same cards, just either a Alibur Fusion Deployment, and when I meant Fusion, I meant Brand Fusion, Alibur Brand Fusion, or just like Fusion Deployment. Those cards were always in my hand. I love seeing them, they were great. So I ended on Dragoon, Mercurier, and just the Dust Dragon, and he tried to go in Titaniclad, and then upon Titaniclad I ashed it because I think it's specials from deck, so I ashed it, and I think that was it that stopped his plays, because all I remember, he had Sprite Red and Titaniclad on board. And then I had a Book of Eclipse in hand, and I literally told him out loud, I don't know if this is the right play, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I Book of Eclipse's monsters, flip them face down, and then because I know Sprite Red is a negation, so I figured I might as well set them face down so their effects won't activate, so I can get through his board a lot easier and then potentially close the game out. I did eventually close the game out pretty easily. I think he just conceded that second game and said I had it. There wasn't much he could have done, but I did for that game side in like it was cross out designated. Yeah, I did side in the cross out designators for that game because I didn't know what to really hit with Sprite, so I just sided in the crossouts and the Raw Disciple to hopefully lock him out of special summoning. Those are just my picks. I did not know what to do against the Sprites, so I just thought those were the good options and went with it. And I did have a crossout designator in hand, so if he did have any Ash Blossoms, I could just send it with crossout and then have my plays still go through. So all in all, I did better than what I assumed I would do. I generally thought I would go 0-0 or 0-3. I did not expect the draw though, so it happens. It was just we played 3 games and that was it. I got 2 packs and that was the end of it. My general thoughts, I think I'm kind of happy with it. I'm kind of not. I generally think I could have done more, but it was my first tournament, so I'm gonna cut myself a lot of slack. And I guess it's your guys' opinion to tell me what I could have done or I did wrong. And I don't know. It just experience, really, because I don't know these matchups and what to do for them. So I guess now I can recall you guys Daniel's experience. I felt so bad for Daniel. He went 0-2 and then of course dropped out. For him, I felt kind of bad. I pressured him into doing this, and just for his sake, but he forgot his pistols at home, so he didn't have his full deck list like he wanted it. So he was mad at himself, and I just really told him like, hey, you can't. I told him you can use my Bistios because I'm only running one Lubellion and one Sornier, and he did take the 2 Sorniers, but he didn't run anymore. Now that the tournament's over, he is running his list how he wants it, and we're gonna be playing soon tomorrow. We'll see, and we'll see how that goes. So, round 1 for Daniel was with this very nice guy. I even joined up because their match was still going, and I spectated. The guy was very great, was helping him with his activated effects, was trying to help him through it, and was very patient with him, and was going to leave the game as a draw, but Daniel just said, "No, it's good. We can just end it off on your victory." And so, good sportsmanship all around. I did appreciate that guy for being patient with Daniel. Daniel has only been playing for like a month or so, and this is his first tournament experience, and he hasn't had any experience using new cards like Blazing Cartesia or Lubellion. So I do appreciate that, and I think it was a heartfelt moment. Game 2 for Daniel, he didn't tell me much. He just told me the guy just seemed out of it, and he lost both rounds. He doesn't even know what the guy was playing, so I'm not sure. Yeah, so I felt bad for him, and hopefully we can get some more experience under our belts, and then come back next week stronger. That's all my hope is for both me and Daniel. So I guess we can go forward, and I can show you guys what I ran. So I'm gonna be using my webcam for this, but I'm gonna be using my phone or my face. So sorry if the webcam looks like shit. I would use my phone, but I am using my webcam for this because I don't have much anything else. So for the main deck, I ran 3 Alibur. I don't think this should be cut down to 2. 1 just seems blasphemy. This card does a lot for you, and opening this card and your fusion or your loss just seems like a great card to have. And there's many ways to get it out, so there's a lot of plays you can do to make sure you have your Alibur or make sure you have your fusion. 1 tragedy and 1 ad libitum. I've seen people cut the ad libitum, and I get the reason why they would cut the ad libitum, but one game it did come up. It was in a weird play. I send tragedy by Foolish Burial, which I'll show later, and instead of grabbing the Alibur to normal and grab fusion, I then instead grabbed the ad libitum because I had Brandon in red in my hand. So I then activated the Brandon in red. Well, first I activated the Mirror Jade effect to banish, and then because I had Mirror Jade on the field, this was in game 3 with that Sprite player. Then I banished one of their stuff, and then I used a Brandon red, return tragedy to my hand, then use Ad libitum, tragedy, and Mirror Jade to make Guardian Chimera. So that was 1 pop and 2 cards drawn, and I guess you can also say that sort of sealed the deal because I also got to revive the Mirror Jade back. So I had like 2-3k bodies on board. Ad libitum at that point is great. You only want to play him at 1 at those situations where you play Brandon in red to get your Guardian Chimera. He is great, so you can use your fusion monsters. reborn them back, and then get some more value out of them. And then we play 2 Fallen of Albazes with the Dragoon package, and just shuffling this card back with Lubellion. One of my opponents, I think it was the Cashier player, thought I was playing 3 Fallen. I thought about playing 3 Fallen, but if you're going to be shuffling them back with Lubellion, which is the main fusion monster you'd be summoning a lot, you don't really need to play 3 in my opinion, but things could change. 2 Blazing Cartesia. If this card wasn't in my hand, it was deployment, and this card came in clutch a lot to summon the Dust Dragon, to either send Lubellion, the Bestial Lubellion, or just Albion to set a branded spell and trap, which will be the red, the expulsion. It could be almost anything. I've even set the retribution. This card really helps you extend your plays. And then just for the 1-ofs, you got the 1 Albion, you got the 1 Bestial Lubellion, the 1 Bestial Soronir, and then the 1 Kit and the 1 Mercurier. The 1 Albion only came on once in my games, because I think I foolished him and then activated his effect to send. Oh wait, I remember this. I foolished him and then activated his effect to send branded retribution to grave, and I think this was against the Cashier player. And then at the grave I had branded fusion, so I banished retribution to then grab the fusion from grave back into my hand, and then with that I was able to activate fusion to get another body with a Dragoon. Or I think I was able to summon the second Dragoon because he blew up my board, and that board did include my original copy of Dragoon. But I was able to make a second copy of Dragoon, and that Dragoon lasted the most. That was the one that went to 7,000 attack. So this definitely came up, and it definitely did save my ass to not only draw a card, but to also get that branded fusion to hand. The 1 Lubellion, I do have a second copy of Lubellion, but I did take inspiration of the YCS Las Vegas second place branded deck. I'll try to find the link and then probably put it down there. But he did run 1 Lubellion and the 1 Soronir, and before I got the second Lubellion, I ran 1 Lubellion, and it just seemed fine. And especially with the Soronir being able to send your retribution or your fusions or whatever, or just your retribution to get your branded spell and trap back, I thought it was kind of all you need. Especially when you got the Dragoon package already as a negate, you don't really need the branded regained or branded beast. I might put on the other Bestials or the other Lubellion I have, but in today's tournament, it just seemed fine. I didn't feel like I needed the regained or the beast, so it was fine in the end. And then the 1 Spriggans and the 1 Mercurier just to help you with the negation, and also if it's banished, you can also get a Search for a Fallen of Albaz, and 1 Spriggans kit just to get your other branded spells and traps. And before I forget, the 1 Dragoon, the 1 Dark Magician, of course, because you're gonna need it for Dragoon. And I did play the light Hex Sealed Fusion instead of the Dragoon, but I saw that they were starting to play Dragoon, Dark Magician more instead of the light Hex Sealed Fusion. I wanted to give it a shot, so I started playing him. And the times I did summon Dragoon, it was nice to have it be a Dark Magician because it's a lot more reoccurable. You get what I mean? You can, no matter what, you can always activate Fusion, sending Dark Magician and Fallen, and then shuffle them back through Lubellion, because Dark Magician is a dark. You can then shuffle them back, meaning you get your Fallen of Albaz back, but only that you get a Dark Magician back. And if you're like me and running 2 Dragoons, that means you're going to be more consistently playing Dragoons instead of just probably like one Dragoon because your stuff gets banished. For hand traps, I played 3 Ash. These only came up in my game against the Sprite player. Other than that, they never really did come up. I usually cited them out for another sort of hand trap to fit the deck I was playing against, but they could have come up, especially with Cross Crusader. You can send them with Cross Out Designator. Sorry, I'm thinking of that hero Link monster. But with Cross Out Designator, you can set the Ash to get your playthrough, and then the Nibiru. Nibiru only came up really once. I was hoping it would come up with Kashtira, but it only came up against the Drytron player, and the Drytron player still was able to go through the Nibiru. So, like I said, I didn't know. So it is what it is. And then for the spells, of course, 3 Brand Infusion. It doesn't really need explanation. It's Brand Infusion. 3 opening. Opening was good. It was another way to get my Aliber. I think like I had this card twice in my hand and I got into my Alibers. So I think it was a very great card to have in the deck, especially at 3. I think its protection effect was going to come up once, but it was against Kashtira, and they were banishing the monster and not destroying it. And then for the 1-ofs, of course, you got the 1 lost. It can be searched through Lobelion, or it can even just be searched through your Aliber, as I did multiple times. I think every time I activated Aliber that tournament, it was just to grab Lost, because I already had a fusion. 1 branded in red. You only really need to run 1, especially if we can set it through Albion. Be like it for the branded spells. Then for the non-branded spells, we got 3 fusion deployments. This card is absolutely amazing. I think it should absolutely be played at 3, allow any card allowing you to special summon your Fallen of Albaz, or your Blazing Cartesia, or even just your Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, as that is run in the side. I think is just an amazing diversible card. I mainly grab Blazing Cartesia with fusion deployment, but there was one game where I did grab Fallen of Albaz because I didn't think I have the fusion. No wait, I remember it was against Drytrons and the Drytron player, and he made it so I cannot activate my monster effects. So I activated deployment to grab Fallen of Albaz, and you might think, why would I grab the Fallen of Albaz if its effects are getting negated anyway? But because I used Super Polymerization in hand, because I cited that in, to then use the Fallen of Albaz that he had and one of his monsters that was dark to make Lubellion, and then with Lubellion I would make Mirror Jade. So it was a nice breakthrough. Granted, I couldn't use the Mirror Jade effect, but it was at least a 3k body compared to the Fallen of Albaz's normal body. So it was definitely great to see fusion deployment be worked in different ways. Got the 1 gold sarcophagus. I think this card is just really diverse, especially with Foolish Burial. With Foolish Burial, you can send the Soranir, and Soranir would Foolish a Bestial monster. You can send your Lubellion to special, or you can even just send your Tragedy, and then Tragedy will get you Aliber, and then Aliber starts your combos. Gold Sark, you can either send your Mercurier to grab a Fallen of Albaz, or you can send your Tragedy, and then Tragedy gets you to your Aliber. I think these 2 cards are just great and very diverse. Then you got the 1 Called by the Grave, just to stop hand traps. And then the 3 Book of Eclipses. This only came up during my game against the Sprite player, not against the Kashtira, so I felt bad. So you can't do much about it. And then the 1 Branded Expulsion and the 1 Retribution. Branded Expulsion is played. It's come up many times against when I played Ra's Disciple, and I do mainboard it. think the only time I mainboarded and it didn't come up, or it was on the field and I used it, I think I just resummoned 2 monsters in order to use branded in red with. So it's pretty diverse. You're not really gonna search it that often, but if you got it in hand, it can be a very good tech to use with branded in red, so it helps out. Then for the extra deck, we run in 2 Albion, 2 Lubellion, and 2 Mirror Jade. I was running like 1 Lubellion, 2 Albion, and 1 Mirror Jade, but I decided to put back the extra Lubellion, the extra Mirror Jade, and it did come up where the Lubellion was engraved, so it needed another one along with the Mirror Jade. So I am glad I did add back the Lubellion. And then of course, this card, 2 Red Eye Stark Dragoons. I want to see a turn where I have 2 of these on board, but this card is just nuts. Having a permanent 1000 attack boost along with the negation helped me out quite a lot in my games, and having 2 just generally helped out, as I do remember a specific moment against the cashier player. He was able to look through my extra deck and banish one of them face down, and he specifically made a comment on what so many dragoons. So I generally felt a good happy moment, because I knew no matter what, if he did want to get rid of one of the dragoons, I already had another dragoon. So running 2, I definitely say was the best choice, and I already had 2, so it was just good for me. Then 1 Brigand. This actually did come up, and it was actually kind of useful during the cashier player when he was locking out my zones, my spell and trap zones. For a Mirror Jade effect, I then sent Brigand. So instead of sending Albion to set a branded spell and trap card, which was useless because he was, locking out my spell and trap zones, I then instead sent Brigand. It was a card I never looked at, but then I looked at it today, and then I was able to grab a Fallen of Albaz, and in my mind I was like, that's fucking great. So I send this, and then during end phase I grabbed the Fallen of Albaz, so I then have a follow-up fusion for the next turn. So I definitely say Brigand was definitely a sleeper card, but it was definitely paid off for keeping it in the deck. Of course, 1 Guardian, 1 Predabrant, Draco Stapelia. It did come up in my game against that Kashtira. I did think it was good. Not summoned often, but it does sort of take away that prize. Of course, the 1 Dust Dragon. This came up a lot in my games. Even though I didn't go into Despian Proskenion often, it definitely still helped out with my combos in going in. Speaking of Proskenion, 1 Despian Proskenion. I haven't summoned him yet, but I do think he would definitely help out, especially being like a 3k bot. 3200 body is pretty big for most people to go through, and then just being able to banish something or special summon a monster through his effect, I think would be definitely a great add. And then Rindbrum, the Striking Dragon. This didn't come up a single time in my games, but I am not gonna judge it because like I said, it's my first tourney, so we'll see if this brings in more value. I'm pretty sure it will, especially since it's basically an extra deck negate, since it negates like XCs, links, and fusions. I definitely think this card will come up one day. And then 1 Sprined, the Iron Dash Dragon. This card has not come up for me to play, but it was a potential out to any contract C. I didn't come across that. In fact, I was the only one that used it against Kashtira, and unfortunately he had a link monster to use that contact C with, so it didn't get to shine and stop his plays. But at the very least, I made him use 1 Kashtira monster, so I don't know if that slowed him down, I'm not sure. With the side, I am running a 13 card side, and there is a reason for that. I'm running 3 contact C's, 1 Neospacian Aqua Dolphin, 1 Raw's Disciple, is a story for that too, 3 super polys, 3 econs, and 2 cross out designator. Now, you might be wondering why Neospacian but not Elemental Hero Spacian or Neos, and then why Ra's Disciple and not Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Well, simple, because I couldn't find them. I went to a guy I always go for cards, and I asked if he had Aqua Dolphin, and he did, so it was cheap. And I asked if he had Contact Seas and Econs, he did, but he unfortunately didn't have the fusion of Aqua Neos, so I could not get it from him. And then he also didn't have the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, so it was unfortunate. And then when I actually went to the locals, I did ask if they had the fusion, and if they did have the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. They did not. So unfortunately, I was running a 13 card side deck. I generally don't know how my games could have played differently if I had the fusion for Aqua Dolphin. Maybe use it with fusion deployment to get it out and rip some cards out of my opponent's hands. And then Context Seed did come up once, but he had an out to it, like I said. Ra's Disciple did come up a lot, and while they didn't Book of Eclipse it to set it face down, it was still a good card to have, as it did lock out my opponents from special summoning. And what was it? I'm missing one card. No. No, I think that's it, you know. But thankfully I did have the Ra's Disciple for that lock, so I did at least have something for a lock. And I didn't have the Nightmare. Didn't have the fusion, yeah. I think it was, I'm forgetting one card. If I remember it, or if I remember something, I'll put a text here. But yeah, that is what I ran for my first tournament. I'm fairly happy with the deck. I did not think there should be any changes to it, but if there are any changes you think I should do or make to it, definitely, you know, drop a comment or something, or give a suggestion. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. See you later when we get to see Daniel and we can finally do some play tests, hopefully get some more experience under his belt, and you can come back stronger. All right, see you guys.